Good day. This is Elias Leon from the University of Panama in Panama City, Panama. And before we start, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity. And well, we are trying to present the significance of technical English applied to astronomy. A research conducted at the University of Panama, summer 2023. As we are dealing with the significance of technical English applied to gastronomy, it is worth noting that there are some considerations we have to do based on the literature review. First of all, the University of Panama, offerer of the bachelor degree in gastronomy, provides the insights required by professionals in the culinary arts. The only downside uh, lays in the second language perspective regarding English, as there are only two English courses throughout the career, one being the NCIN, which is in English Common Core for its Spanish acronym, and the other, the ING 355, the Technical English for Gastronomy. Professional development for culinary arts specialists originates on the internationalization of their skills, as it is required for national and international regulations. And we have to consider that, the latter requiring English as a medium. In Panama, the Ministry of Health, in charge of issuing the Certificate of Sanitary Registration, establishes a multi point list of requisites that comes from the Gaceta Oficial, the official newspaper from 1962. International regulations pertaining food growing and handling, especially when dealing with imported goods, require the use of English language to clearly state their origins and recommended uses. For example, the Article 11 of the Cartagena Protocol 2000 provides directives for the living modified organisms intended for direct use as food, with importing requirements often relying on English as trading lingua franca. Another direct representation comes from the CAC, or Codex Alimentarius Commission, in 1963, from the UN United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. The CAC presents general requirements for food hygiene, food special dietary uses, including foods for infants, children, uh, processed and quick frozen fruits and vegetables, fresh fruits and vegetables, among other regulations. They are available primarily in English, thus making English the language for culinary arts in general, especially for culinary arts specialists. Gastronomy, a term oftentimes used instinctively with culinary arts, nevertheless, the two different terms do not mean the same. Tracing the origins of the term gastronomy, gastronomia, basically it's by a stretch, and I have to excuse my Greek pronunciation, gastronomia. According to Santik and Bills in 2009, Archestratus used the term gastronomia from ancient times in 4 BC. The Greek includes the morphological gastro or gaster, meaning stomach, and nomos, um, again, forgive my pronunciation, meaning knowledge or law. Nim Shilasem, 2018, also mentioned basically there are different ways of explaining and using the terms. As the term exists on the Chambers 20th Century Dictionary from 1908, gastronomy's definition was the science or art of food eating. And over 100 years later, the Encyclopedia Britannica 2023 defines gastronomy as the art of selecting, preparing, serving, and enjoying fine food. When trying to differentiate gastronomy from culinary arts, the former relates to what Beauxbatons and Sofa 2013 emphasize: food is a core component of every culture. The culinary roots to the Latin term culinarius or culina, kitchen. Thus, the term evolved to pertain to the kitchen or to cookery used in the kitchen. That is from Chambers 1908. When leaning towards a more recent definition, the term holds its core meaning as the Oxford Dictionary, that is the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary 2023, still defines it as connected with cooking or food. The gastronomy students, in this case, are exposed to the English throughout their careers. In our case, particularly, the students must take the NCIN or English Common Core. The issue is that they keep the same analytical program, the way we call actually, basically the syllabus across all the careers. So in general, the NCIN includes the same core components for every single career at a university. Thus, the ING, being the one that kind of develops the specialized English, requires actually, or it mandates to have an intermediate level of English competences while incorporating the specific concepts from the food industry. These language competences, according to the CEFR, or actually the Common European Framework of References for Language, that comes from the Council of Europe, 2001, there are differences in conditions, constraints in every communication other than the control environments. Thus, it is a must to observe the language users in different contexts to be considered independent learners. University students must overcome adverse conditions. In this case, they also specified as physical, basically um, interferences, distortions, interlocutory mishaps, also social, like the speaker's numbers, audience familiarity, antagonism, and such, and time pressures, preparation time, timing limitations, anxiety, etc. With the communication process, all of that needs to prepare them for all of these operations. So, based on the Council of Year 2020, we need to consider that there are many more aspects than only just whatever we can teach in a classroom, and we have to prepare students for future. These competences for the C levels, well, in our case, usually called analytical programs, most include elements for ESP, that's the English for specific purposes, to appeal to the students. If they are C applications, so they can probably apply those into their future professions. In spite of the ESP topics, the content must enable students to develop the basic competences to become independent learners. And with that being said, that explains mainly that the culinary arts are in a permanent high demand around the globe. The tourism and hospitality industries comprise the most relevant uses. Panama is no exception. With its wide array of gastronomical offers, the Hub of the Americas requires professionals with knowledge of the Panamanian, regional, and international cuisine, as well as international language to communicate with their surrounding world. For that matter, English. University of Panama offers the bachelor in gastronomy, but it does not have an ING 355, that is technical English for gastronomy syllabus due to the novelty of the career. Syllabus is my university refers to as synthetic programs, and the analytical programs, the full-fledged information with the different applications. Furthermore, such a syllabus must develop intermediate level English competences, B2 equivalent for the CEFR, and the concepts from the food industry that current and future culinary art professions will demand. This project aims to present the first draft of a syllabus for technical English for gastronomy built on students' language needs within their studies. Now, to accomplish that, the first of all is to record the importance of English to the gastronomy student population, and more specifically outlining the topics for a syllabus for the course Technical English for Gastronomy, ING 355, based on the students' needs, basically at the University of Panama. And of course, applying this insight to be developed and kind of tested during the summer period, that is semester 0, 2023, that took place in exactly 10 weeks. Now, as a byproduct, we generate the survey of English topics preferences for students. That is, in short, the SEB. PS or SEPs to serve as a model survey using a 4-point Likert scale with no analytical program when we don't have any available at the moment. In other case, we serve the use of some hypotheses, basically, well, the working and all. Basically, the astronomy students at the University of Panama recognize the importance of English to their career development. And of course, they disregard it. That will be the antagonist. For the current research, we have to consider that it encompasses the quantitative design, considered non-experimental because of the non-manipulation of the independent variables that, well, Hernandez and Pierre Mendoza 2018 mentioned, provided that it is a single group representing a transsectional application for a case study. That is, again, Mshilasam 2018, and the units of analysis for this study comprise the entirety of the students from the group 1. Well, at that moment, they were cursing the bachelor in gastronomy. In this case, the term group 1 represents the 31 students taking the course ING 355 for technical English applied to gastronomy during the semester 0. That is otherwise interpreted as the summer period of the academic year 2022. That actually is the beginning of 2023. In our case, we have to develop this so-called data collection instrument, purposely developed survey, served for that matter. The survey of English topics preferences for students, or SAPS, or SEPs for short. This was basically an um, open to answer for students for 5 days after the researcher explanation, questions and answer sessions. Um, the name SCPS comes from the common need of developing and updating analytical programs, the way we call it, the syllabus. In any case, whenever we have to deal with specialized lexis for a field of expertise, the proclivity of the topics must follow a prior general English knowledge assessment, usually by cursing or completing NCIN, the Núcleo Común, or English Common Core. Um, but also can be covered with an automatic proficiency test prior to the survey application, like, well, if a quick test or any other standardized um, test. In either case, the idea behind this was to provide kind of a standard so we can continue changing and further improve in every application. We start by the data collection instrument with basically defining three main sections. The first and foremost being the acknowledgement. It is the conditional to proceed or disregard the survey using the process seen or displayed here. As we can uh, perhaps read in this case, the statement includes the elements of, well, what is the main purpose, the aims of this study, the statements, what is it going to be, and well, the students can consider, considering it was aimed to students, there were no right or wrong answers, and also that there will be no additional punishment or rewards. It's just the idea of sharing their knowledge, and well, they should also consider that it's just a way to improve, something that it's not often seen. Students can kind of understand and exchange ideas with the professors that are willing to know what they really need. In this case, responses basically will not represent money or affect the course assessment. So that is also important to mention that there will be no additional um, consequences and further consequences for these particular segments. And that, of course, the idea is that we try to develop something using their knowledge instead of only basically kind of a way of leveling up the knowledge instead of just giving a top-down instruction. The survey will serve well for different purposes, and I also stated there. And of course, we also have the contact information for the professor. In this particular case, it has to clear bioethics committee approval, but generally speaking, they understand that this is basically a completely anonymous survey, so there will not be much ways to perhaps trace back its origins to whoever was the respondent. That's one of the reasons that we actually consider this something that can be applied, adapted, and applied in different scenarios. In all the cases, when the option was selected as agree, they proceed to the next section with the survey items, which is basically the second. And if they disagree, they proceed to the end, basically, just thanking them for the response. And of course, tally that there is no response. It will be just accounting, but everything else will be zeroed. Now, the Likert scale, this is a 4-point Likert, the limiting the indifferent or neutral responses. It leans towards the positive or negative connotation. So that's the intention that we prevent the having the neutrality, the comfortable space that people say, I don't know, or I'd rather not say. So the idea is that they take part. And we'll see the results later. But before we continue, the items for SCPS or SEPs that we consider. Basically, this is the second section. The core of the second section represents the 12 items, well, again, representing the likelihood of the student's agreement or disagreement with the statements within the scale. These 4-point Likert scales. Um, in this particular case, well, the likelihood of discarding the neutrality or indifference element appears also on the previous table, and it actually helps considering one as well positive or negative, and we can just have kind of a limited sentiment analysis on that. The SPS items reflect the proposed ESP topics in hand with the CEFR competences required for independent learning, or B1 for CEFR. In this particular case, I rather not read all of them, but as we can see on the screen, those were, well, numbers, exactly the same order of items that appeared here were also established in the original survey. In this particular case, it was for this particular class or this particular study, it was using Microsoft Forms as the medium, and it was a digital form uh, through and through. The third section, called General Information, it was because it provides a general overview of the population, the age, or shift, or the general, well, the year of the most of the courses. And of course, it also leaves some comments in case anything is missing. All responses are stored within the Microsoft server for university account accessible only to the researcher, guaranteeing the anonymity of the respondents. And this is why Microsoft Forms was chosen, considering that was the account we are using. The current section, it is possible to infer the participation, the likeness, and keenness of responses, among other insights. But that can be left for another study. In this particular case, we are not using this to stereotype certain amount of certain groups. It's just a matter of having information, collecting data. Even the students were well, open to just leave it blank. And as we can see, one of the students didn't complete information about what year he or she was cursing. So again, it is completely anonymous, so it cannot be traced back. And it didn't require students to log in or sign in. It was completely free, though only available to the students directly within the group. Um, in addition to that, we can also consider, well, the first part of the application in the procedure. The SCPS was applied for a period of 4 weeks. The first 4 weeks was 1 month. After closing the form, the collected data was analyzed using the software PSPP. PSPP is the freeware for the statistical analysis for sampling data without a corresponding acronym. It is known for being a free of cost partial equivalent to the IBM SPSS or statistical package for the social sciences. The reliability analysis resulted in a Chromback alpha value of 0.739, rendering um, general acceptable results according to Creswell and Creswell 2018, provided the results were over the referential value of zero point 0.7. The variables were ordinal and continuous. So in general, well, non-parametric tests were applied considering the intention was to know the perception of the target population to set the analytical program basis. To prove the hypothesis, the significance level was set to 95%. And that being said, we can also consider that most answers encounter a positive connotation. After the application and the analysis, we consider that the important or extremely important were the norm. Only 11.4% of the answers fell on the negative connotation. 37 somewhat not important out of the 324 total possible answers. But no answers, counting extremely unimportant, as we can see on the right end of the table. Particularly, we can see the zeros here. Now, with that being said, we can also consider that in general, it's still worth noting that not everything accomplished or reach its destination. It's worth noting that three of the items representing the possible ESP topics do not reflect a clear interest to students as opposed to the remaining nine, as we can see on the current table. Um, Two tests were performed, one sample chi-square and one sample binomial. Again, we have only one group and it is a transactional application, so there are no revisions or ways to improve or review or apply it again. So, with that being said, we consider that it was, uh, well, we can say that these topics were developed as part of classes during the 2023 semester zero, the summer. In this case, the technical English for gastronomy, it can be considered it was a partial success, considered a moderate success, I would say, due to the lack of face-to-face interaction, limiting the conclusions to reference class participations, the talk time on camera, and well, the grades, non-standardized with any live monitoring from UP Virtual Platform, which was kind of a custom version of Moodle. Both reference rendered promoting scores for all participants. So we can say that it was a success for students, and the final projects were fairly good, accomplishing all the goals set in the rubric. So I can say it was a moderate success. The C levels for the ING must develop the B2 competences using the nine the majority relevant ESP topics as part of their strategies. But it is required the common interest of the gastronomy school and the English departments to request the development of the syllabus for technical English for gastronomy at the University of Panama. We can also consider that the possible syllabus might include, but is not limited to, the development of the English language skills using ESP topics. And, well, in general, the preferred competences and topics, they should be in according to the national international regulations, of course, that the gastronomy school opted to follow. Regarding the survey, examining cases, the population responding to ESCP, the SEPs, the SCPS, accounts for 30 and 27 out of the 32, 84% of the total population throughout the entire summer period. It will render a successful piloting application of SCPS considering the internal consistency. But it's worth noting that the discovery that SCPS requires more than 19 answers to render reliable, answers, and it contrasts entirely with the seemingly non-standard number of cases in non-parametric analysis. So yeah, it was basically discovered through the analysis in general. I've also had the opportunity to apply the kind of equivalence of the SEPS, the SEPS process in additional three studies. Uh, but I still consider that further application is required to calibrate the scopes and outreaches for a possible generalized use in ESP research. And with that being said, I can also consider that it was a success, but we can also we have much further studies to conclude, to continue and have further conclusions. Some of the references for our from our study, and I hope it helps and also shed some light on this. And best wishes.